Good evening. Oh, I hope you're all doing well tonight. It is great to see you, many of you, again this year. And I do recognize that there are some new faces, or at least faces that I haven't met yet. And so to those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. And we're very happy to have you here. I thought I'd start by introducing the folks from my staff who are here, and you'll have an opportunity in a little while to meet them personally. With us tonight are Paula Donnelly. If you want to just wave Paula, that'd be great. Paula is our Assistant Director for High Schools, and she is our specialist in our department, Planning and Development for Inclusion. So increasing the inclusive opportunities for children. Paula is our lead in that area. With her, next to her is Cindy Nielsen. Cindy is our Assistant Director for Elementary Schools. And Cindy is also our district-wide lead in the area of emotional impairment. Cindy has been instrumental and continues to be instrumental in the planning and development in the area of early childhood special education. And next to Cindy is Nadia Cyprian. Nadia is our middle school K-8 assistant director. Nadia is our specialist lead. In addition to leading the middle school K-8 unit, she's our district-wide lead on English language learners with disabilities. With us also tonight, as always, every month, is Natalie Ake. Natalie is supervisor in our department, and Natalie's area of specialty is family engagement. So she's my right-hand person in the area of helping us do a better job understanding our responsibilities to parents of children with disabilities. And Natalie will be a regular member of my staff who's here every month at these meetings. Sure.
I'm sorry, I should have announced at the beginning of the meeting, we're a little bit shuffled here because we got moved from one location to the other, that we do have Spanish interpretation here this evening as well as Haitian. So who are our two interpreters? So if anybody needs Spanish interpretation or Haitian interpretation, these are the people. Okay, and Maggie is passing out equipment. Okay, I just want to note that. Thanks.
Thanks. I thought it would be good to also introduce Maggie Druneau, who's standing up back there. Maggie is our manager for operations in our department, and Maggie is our lead on critical areas of operations, including transportation for one, and all of our arrangements for meetings. And so she's our link to the other departments in the school district who are responsible for those things. And Maggie's been very instrumental this year in the process of making transportation go a little bit better each year. So it's great to have her here. And I noticed, I hope I don't miss anybody, but I noticed that Patricia Lampron, who's the principal of the Henderson School, is here tonight, sitting in the back. I invited her to give a speech tonight, but she declined. It's great to have you here, Patricia. And I hope I'm not missing anybody else that I should be introducing. Oh, I'm sorry, right. Okay, so with us also tonight is a team of program directors from my office who are our program directors for services for children on the autism spectrum specifically, and in a major way right now, ABA services. And so it's Lorraine and Kim and Kylan. And I would give you all their last names, but I can't remember all their last names, so sorry about that. It's great to have you here tonight. Am I missing somebody, or are you just a friend?
I tag along with you guys.
These three program directors supervise all of the ABA services that we provide in the school districts. And on an increasing basis, ABA services, I'll mention more about this later. ABA services will be provided more and more by our own staff. But right now, we have a hybrid model, and we are contracting with outside agencies to make sure that we can meet everybody's needs, and all of this is managed by Seth Bartholomew, who's our supervisor for autism, and Kim, Kylan, and Lorraine. So great to have you here, too. I did want to say a few things about where we are right now as a department and where we would like to go this year. Some of you, many of you, who come to these meetings regularly know that we have three major goals in our department. First of all, improve student outcomes. So it is very important to us that everything we do focuses on improving the academic, social, emotional, behavioral, vocational, and transitional outcomes for students with disabilities in the school district. And we try to measure all of our activities against how they will contribute to improving student outcomes. You probably know that our department is a support department. We provide support to schools in the first place, and in another way we provide direct support to families and students. So we don't run the schools. We are here to support the principals in leading their schools and support the good learning outcomes of students in those schools. That's why we're here. It's a work in progress. You know that I've been here for 2 full years now. I've been here for 2.5 years in total. Consistently for that whole time, our first goal has been to improve student outcomes. Secondly, we're here to meet the hopes and aspirations of families. So we constantly listen, try to understand, and try to act on what families want for their children. And I believe that over time, we've become better at actually partnering with families to accomplish what we need to accomplish in the schools. As you know, I've worked directly with many of you in the audience, and you know, with me, we ran into barriers many times. When we live and work in a large city and in a large educational organization, there will always be barriers or challenges or hurdles. And my experience here, I've been in special education for 40 years, but my experience in these years here in Boston tell me that we do a much better job as individual professionals and as a department if we are doing those things in partnership with you, with parents and other family members. You make us more knowledgeable. We understand more about the children when we partner with you. You also make us more powerful because you are the primary consumers of what we do. And so if we, in fact, are doing the right things for your children, and if we, in fact, are addressing your hopes and aspirations for your children, we become more powerful and effective in what we're doing. Without you, we would not succeed, absolutely. Finally, the third goal is that we must do all of this, improving student outcomes and addressing the hopes and aspirations of families in the context of complying with state and federal regulations. You know that special education is the most highly regulated field in public education in the United States. And so we do everything we do in the context of state and federal regulations. And you know as well as I do that sometimes there's a tug of war between complying with the regulations, meeting the hopes and aspirations of families, and improving student outcomes. They don't always, those three things, lead us to do exactly the same thing. And so one job that our assistant directors and our supervisors have is to try to do all three of those things all the time, and that means juggling a lot of things. There is a fourth, I hesitate to call it a goal of the department because it doesn't rise to the same level, but it's a very important consciousness that I have to have, and that is that we're supposed to be doing all of this and doing it being more efficient, doing it in a cost-effective way. And because we never have enough fiscal resources to do everything that we're trying to do, and that this is not an expanding fiscal environment, there are limitations on the resources we have available. We're constantly trying to figure out how we can do the best for your children and do it in a very cost-effective way. And that's pretty complicated, and we don't always succeed. Now, in terms of the actual work where we are this year, I wanted to note the things that I feel extremely good about, and the things that we are now in the midst of working on to make better. First of all, I'm very proud to say that in the area of early childhood special education, all evaluations of young children are done on time, and all young children, 3 to 5-year-olds, have placements that match their needs at the right time. And for children who are entering the system, who we learn of at 2 years old or during their second year, all of those children have placements offered to them by the time they turn 3. And then students who we meet at 3 or 4 years old, those students have placements within the regulatory timelines. So probably for the first time in the history of the Boston Public Schools, all young children who are supposed to be having evaluations and being placed, in fact, are. The challenge there is that the numbers of young children needing evaluations and placements has risen exponentially in the last 2 years, and it is now continuing to rise. So we ended last year with a little over 700 young children in placement in the Boston Public Schools. We will end this year with over 800 young children in placement. And this, if I look back a couple of years ago, I believe my first year here, there were some 200 children in placement. So this has changed fourfold in the space of 2 years. So I'm very, very pleased that we are where we are today. We opened some 22 new classrooms for young children during the year last year, and we will probably open somewhere between 8 and 12 new classrooms for young children this year. We have 110 or so classrooms right now. That number will be up over 120 by the end of this school year. Second area, ABA services. I'm sure that it's appropriate to say at this point that for the first time in the history of the school district, all children who are supposed to have had an ABA evaluation have their evaluation, and now there's no backlog in evaluations. So when any child needs an evaluation, they get that evaluation within regulatory timelines. And Kim and Kylan and Lorraine are the folks in our offices who actually do all those evaluations. These are our central office leadership staff who are all BCBAs. And all the children who are supposed to be receiving ABA services now receive those services. And the number of children who need evaluations and services rose exponentially last year and will rise again this year. We have dedicated considerable financial resources to making sure that there will no longer ever be a backlog in evaluations or a backlog in services for ABA. The area of inclusion is an ongoing effort on our part. When I came here 2.5 years ago, there were 5 schools that anyone would say were inclusive, and we now have 24 schools that have joined the Boston Inclusive Schools Network and are working to develop more and more inclusive opportunities for children with disabilities in their schools, and those include elementary schools, middle schools, K-8 schools, and high schools. And we are now in the process of planning for implementation next September, the high school that will be in the Henderson Harbor pathway. So there will be a high school connected to the Henderson and the Harbor that will open its doors next September. We have the wonderful support of the National Inclusive Schools Network, and the number of schools joining the Boston Inclusive Schools Network grows every month now. New schools join. All those schools are in different places in terms of how developed they are and how much inclusion is available in those schools. And so I really expect that inclusion in the Boston Public Schools will be a 10-year process. So by the time I retire, 8 years from now, I expect there will be a lot more inclusive opportunity in the Boston Public Schools, but it won't be done. It'll be an ongoing process. Now, the 2 big areas where there will be major development during the year this year is in the area of transition and assistive technology. We have completed the strategic plan for the development of transition services in the Boston Public Schools. That will go to the superintendent this coming week. And with her approval, we will begin implementation of that plan immediately. The assistive technology strategic plan is now in near final draft form, not final draft form. So in a couple of weeks, we will be distributing the assistive technologies strategic plan to a group of readers and getting their final input on that plan. We've had great partners with community-based partners in the development of both of those plans, and both of those plans call for new staff in the school district and new relationships, new arrangements with community-based partners going forward. I think it's going to take us in each of those areas, we're estimating between 3 and 5 years to get to the point that we should be. And the amount of resources that are going to have to get invested in transition services and assistive technology are significant. The number of dollars that will have to be invested in that. The final thing I would say is that many of you know, because you've participated, when I came here a couple of years ago, I established a number of task forces and invited parents to become part of the planning process in our department. And that work is evolving and is continuing this coming year, so I wanted to let you know what the opportunities are this coming year. And the participation of families in these various, what we call planning and development structures, Carolyn Kane and John St. Amand and other members of the executive board of your group have been the folks who collect the interests of families and then match families with these various working groups. So I'll mention what these are. If you're interested in participating in any of those, you should let John or Carolyn, or I suppose any member of the executive board, know of your interest. And what we try to do is get a number of parents on each one of these things, and we try to get all of the activities covered. Sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not so easy. So the task forces, which are continuing from last year going into this year, are what we have called social emotional behavioral support, also known as emotional impairment. So if you have an interest in that area, there will be a task force meeting every month this coming year. There is a task force on inclusion and a task force on English language learners with disabilities. Now, those task forces meet in the evening on Tuesday evenings at about 5 or 6, depending on what else is going on Tuesday evening. And we meet at Campbell Resource Center in Dorchester. And there's always either, I'm very often at these meetings, or there's a member of my senior leadership team who's helping facilitate the meeting along with me. Now, we also have two work groups, and the work groups are different in that they meet during the workday because they include a larger number of staff working, and people from different departments have to be engaged in that. Working groups are open to family members who can join us during the workday. There's a working group that will be continuing in the area of transition, and a working group continuing in the area of assistive technology. And then there are two areas where there's been a whole great deal of planning and development already invested, and we're now in the process of developing advisory committees. And advisory committees are formulated by invitation by me, and these advisory committees will have multi-year terms. So if you join an advisory committee, you might be on the advisory committee for 2 years, and then your term is up. We have two advisory committees that we're in the process of beginning establishment right now. One is on autism, and the other one is on early childhood. So if you're interested in being a member of one of the advisory committees, that's a longer term, more permanent commitment. You should let Carolyn or John know that you might be interested. We try to balance the advisory committees with family members, experts from the field, and leadership from my own department. Now, there is also a General Office of Special Education and Student Services Advisory Committee, which is my advisory group, and your co-chairs automatically are members of that group. So your voice at the table of the larger, more general advisory committee that meets with me regularly, your voices are in the hands of your co-chairs. So I would want to mention before I stop that many of you know, perhaps all of you, that there is a new assignment plan in development right now. I've spent a great deal of time over the last few months with what's called the technical working group. This is the group of people who are working out the details of how the assignment, whichever assignment option gets implemented, how that's going to impact on students and how it will relate to other processes in our department, like in the district, like enrollment services and transportation, etc. I'm very pleased at this point with how much attention has been paid to the needs of children with disabilities in the development of the assignment process. And I think, I believe that enough attention has been paid that all of the work we've done so far will be supported in whatever option is chosen. And the doors are kept open for us to go forward and continue the things we're trying to develop. For instance, there's a conscious focus on making sure that however many zones there are, that there are inclusive schools in all the zones. And however many zones there are ways for children who are going to highly specialized strands to go to those strands as close to home as possible. It won't be in every zone. So here's an example. If we chose the 23 zone model, we're not going to be able to do a highly specialized strand for every disability group at every grade level in every one of 23 streams. It's not going to work. So and there are other models, like the 6-zone model, where that kind of zone-based service delivery would be a lot more feasible. In either model, there is a map for special education services, which is called an overlay map. And back in the days when I was a kid, we would draw our overlays on pieces of acetate. Does anybody remember acetate? This clear plastic stuff? Overheads, right. And you could actually draw something on it and put it over something else and see both things. Well, we do that all electronically today. But there is an overlay map for special education which will work no matter what option gets selected by the city, by the school district. And I feel very good that so much attention was paid to those issues. Now, each one of those options have really seriously different implications for families in the choices they make. I'm sure that your own leadership will be talking to you more about this, but there is a website. I can't now remember what it is. Do you remember?
EPSSchoolchoice.org.
Boston School Choice.
bostonschoolchoice.org. And if you go there, you can manipulate the environment, and you can actually ask questions like, if we were in the option that has 9 zones, and I live where I live, what might my choices be going forward? Or if you ask the same question in the 23-zone model, what might my choices be? Yes.
I don't understand. What's a zone represent? Pick up 6, 23. What does that represent?
Yeah, good question. So right now, the school district is organized into 3 zones: north, west, and east. And to the greatest extent possible, we try to deliver services within the zone. By the way, you and I know, not really true at the high school level. But for K0 through 8th grade, we try to deliver services within the zone. Now, in the new model, the problem with that model, or there are many problems, one of the problems is you could live in the east zone where I live. I live near Upham's Corner, and the school my son goes to could be in Lower Mills. It's not really close. We can't walk to school, but it's all east zone. And so service delivery, or take the north zone, you could live in East Boston and go to school in Brighton, because it's all the north zone. So the effort here is to have children going to school closer to home, but right along with that, have kids going to school in really high-quality educational environments. So it's a two-pronged effort. Now, I think there is going to be, Carolyn, am I correct that there are going to be a meeting anyway where folks are here to talk to this group, or are we going to something?
We asked for a specific meeting for parents of children with special needs, but it has not been scheduled.
Okay. So there are many community meetings going on over the next month. You may know that, and you may be going to one. Carolyn and John have asked for a specific meeting with the experts there, the technical people, et cetera, there, where we can talk about children with disabilities and their families. Or you have an opportunity to ask specific questions about the various options as it relates to your children. I will say, I think I'm correct in saying this, that none of the models includes high schools. High schools will continue to be citywide. As we plan the location of things in high schools, we're trying to have multiple locations, which cover multiple neighborhoods. Paula and I have been working for about a year on the layout for highly specialized strands in high schools, and we're trying to make it possible, if you live on the western side of the city, that you can go to school on the western side of the city. If you live in the northeast part of the city, you can go to school in the northeast part of the city. It's challenging, and parents at the high school level still have citywide choice, but we're trying to locate our highly specialized programming differentially around the city. So let me stop there and ask if there are any questions that anybody has that you'd like to pose to me. And so with us here tonight are the 3 assistant directors for the different levels. And did you say we're breaking up at some point?
Yeah, we have breakout sessions as the second one.
Okay. So these folks will be in a room. If elementary parents want to talk to Cindy and middle school parents want to talk to Nadia, Paula will be, and I'll be in all those places somehow. Natalie and I maybe will walk around and touch base. But so